Okay, so 1 minute, your colleague says, I just finished the report. And then the next, a friend says, I just need 5 minutes. And a little later in a conversation, you hear someone say, that's just perfect. You keep hearing the same word just in three totally different situations, and each time there's a slightly different meaning. And it won't stop there because you're going to see this word again and again in emails. You'll hear it on the news and even find it sort of sprinkled into every conversation. So you might be wondering, what exactly does this word just mean? And this is the tricky part because sometimes it means recently, sometimes it means only, and sometimes it changes the tone. It can make your words softer, stronger, or even more negative than you intended. It's a small word, but this word just carries a lot of weight and it's used all the time, which is exactly why I want to share this lesson with you today. I want to make sure you know exactly how to use this word and you can quickly understand how it's being used or what it means when you hear it. So by the end of this lesson, you'll know 6 clear and common ways to use this word just in English. And more importantly, you'll understand how it can change tone, how it fits into real conversations, and when to use it confidently. Now, super quick, before we get into those 6 different ways to use just, I want to start with what you probably already know, because chances are you've heard these 2 very common ways that English speakers use just in daily conversation. In fact, you're probably using these 2 uses yourself. The first one is when just means only. For example, I just need 1 minute, or this will just take a few seconds. In both cases, we could swap out the word just and put in the word only. And then the second common way that you likely are already using this word is to mean recently or a very short time ago. For example, I just got here, or I just arrived, I just sent the email. Again, in these examples, you could replace the word just with the word recently. Both of these meanings are useful, but the word just doesn't stop there. It has so many more meanings in English, and they often depend on the context. This one small word with so many meanings and multiple tones. So as we go through this lesson together, I'm going to walk through each of the 6 different ways to use just, and I'll use real examples, real situations along the way so that you can immediately identify with them. As you listen, I want you to pay attention to 2 questions. What is just talking about in this particular example? Is it talking about time, amount, or emotion? And then how does it change the tone of what's being said? Those 2 questions will help you start using this word clearly and naturally in your own English conversations. So let's start with the first one. This one is all about timing. So here we're going to dig a little deeper into how we use just to talk about something that recently happened. Often this is a few minutes, hours, or days ago. And when we use it in this way, it kind of adds a sense of immediacy, the sense that whatever happened is still very fresh or relevant right now. In this context, just is used with the past tenses. For example, I just finished the report. Or with the present perfect, I've just pulled the cake out of the oven. And here's one more. My daughter just graduated from university. With those examples in mind, let's step back a little bit to really understand the context when we use just in this way. So I want you to imagine that you're sitting in a meeting and your phone rings on silent multiple times during the meeting. So as soon as it finishes, you check your phone and you see there are 3 missed calls from your partner. So you call them back and say, sorry, I missed your call. I just got out of my meeting. That is just in action, showing that something happened a moment ago and it's still connected to what's happening right now. With this meaning in place, you can use this version of just in quick updates at work, with friends, or any time that you want to show something just happened and it is still relevant. Now, what if the timing is even tighter? What if something almost didn't happen, but you made it just in time, like within a few seconds? That's where our next use comes in. This next use of just is a little different from the one we just looked at. It still has to do with time, but in this case, just shows that something happened or almost happened with a very small margin. This is what we call a close call in English. And that can mean that you barely succeeded in doing something like catching a flight at the last second, or you narrowly avoided something unpleasant, like slipping on ice or missing a deadline or being caught in a storm. In both cases, just adds a sense of urgency or sometimes even relief. For example, I just submitted my thesis. 5 more minutes and I would have missed the deadline. Or we just made it home when the storm hit the neighborhood. Lisa just passed her driving test by 1 point. And here's one more. I just missed getting stuck in traffic. They closed the highway 5 minutes after I passed the exit. So once again, let's step back and imagine a full picture of what could be happening in your real life when we want to use this particular use of just. And for this one, I want you to imagine that you've been working on a super big project at work with a very strict deadline. The deadline is today at 5 o'clock p.m. And at 4:59 p.m., you click submit. You made it with 1 minute to spare. And later, one of your coworkers asks how the project went. So you say, I submitted it just in time. 1 more minute and I would have been late. This is how we use just to show just how close you were to missing something. And you can use this version of just when you're talking about deadlines, travel, danger, or anything that happened or almost happened at the very last second. Okay, moving on to our third use of just. This one is not about time. It's about the amount or scope of something. In this case, we use just to show that something is small, limited, or not a big deal. It's a way to manage expectations, to say, I'm only asking for this one small little thing. It's, again, not a big deal. Or this isn't as big or as difficult or as challenging as it sounds. So here are a few examples of how to demonstrate that. First, it'll take just 10 minutes to clean the living room. Or let's meet for coffee. I'm free just on Friday this week. Or would it be possible to extend the deadline by just 3 days? In all three of these examples, the word just makes the request or the statement feel more manageable, or it shows the limitations. So imagine this. A friend of yours is in town and wants to catch up. Your schedule is packed full, but you see 2 hours of free time on Friday afternoon. So you say, let's meet for coffee. I have just 2 hours free on Friday. In that example, the use of just helps your friend understand your limited window of time. It's not meant to be rude, it's meant to be realistic and helpful. But there is a tricky part here. Sometimes this use of just can actually sound dismissive or rude if you're talking about somebody else's problem. Let me give you an example. Let's say that a friend is having surgery and she's really worried about it. It's scary to her. If someone were to say, oh, it's just a small surgery, that could sound very dismissive of her feelings and come across as rude. Or again, let's say that someone is really trying to work hard. Maybe your son is trying to pass a math exam and he really is doing everything he can. If someone were to say, you just have to work harder. Again, it's dismissing the effort that is put in. So in these particular examples, using just in that way might make it sound like the other person's challenge, difficulty, or fear isn't that serious, even if that's not really what you mean. So here's how you can use this version of just and always get it right. Use it when you want to make a request or describe something small and specific, but be careful not to use it in a way that makes someone else's experience sound unimportant. I want to take a quick pause before we keep going because you're here, and that tells me that you care about using English clearly and with confidence. And that's exactly what we focus on inside Fluency School, my comprehensive speaking program that helps you go from hesitant or nervous every time you try to speak to using English with clarity, confidence, and freedom. Inside Fluency School, you get expert coaching, a step-by-step method, and real speaking practice so you can finally stop second guessing or doubting yourself and instead begin sharing your ideas freely in English. I open Fluency School only 2 times a year, and the next one is coming up soon. You can get all the details and more over at speakconfidentenglish.com/fluency school. All right, our next version of just is all about showing that something is exactly right, a perfect fit. We use this to express satisfaction, relief, and even appreciation when something meets our needs or expectations in a way that feels exactly spot on. In this context, just doesn't limit or soften. Instead, it emphasizes that something feels like the perfect match. So here's what it sounds like. Your idea was just the solution the client needed. Or, that's just what I needed to hear today. Thank you for cheering me up. This venue is just right for our work event, not too fancy and not too simple. Now that you have those examples, let's explore it a little more. I want you to imagine that you've been having a really difficult week. Nothing's going quite right at work. You're frustrated, maybe even a little overwhelmed. And then your best friend checks in. She listens, she says something kind, and it makes you feel better. So you might say to her, "This is just what I needed. Thank you so much for caring and listening." That is the power of this version of just. You can use it when something fits a situation perfectly, or when you want to show appreciation for someone who really understood what you needed at the time. And now let's shift into a slightly different use. This one is all about politeness and tone, especially in professional settings. In fact, this is one you've probably seen before, especially in emails or polite conversations at work. We often use this version of just to make a request sound less direct or less demanding. As a result, it can sound more respectful, more careful, and actually sometimes a little too careful, which we'll talk about in a moment. But first, let me give you some examples. I just wanted to ask if you could help me carry these boxes up to the third floor. Or I was just wondering if you could review my proposal draft by Friday. In both of those examples, just softens the tone. It shows that you don't want to sound too pushy or too direct. And in many situations, especially in North American speaking culture, that kind of softening is very common, even expected. But here's where it gets tricky. If you use just in every sentence, especially in professional settings, your message can start to sound less confident or even apologetic. And I'll give you an example. I want you to compare, "I just wanted to ask if you had time to review my report," and "I wanted to ask if you had time to review my report." Both are polite, but the second version sounds more clear and confident. So here's a kind of rule that you can use. You can use just in this way to soften your tone when needed. For example, if you're nervous that your request is going to be a little uncomfortable for someone, or if you're making a particularly big request. But don't overuse it. Don't use it every single time. Choose it sometimes with intention so that your message still sounds professional and self-assured. And now we've got just one more use of just to take a look at. And this time, it's not about time or tone, it's about emotion and kind of turning the volume up. In this case, just is used to express strong emotion, whether it's positive or negative. And that means that it's not used to soften your message. In fact, it's the exact opposite. It actually amplifies your message, it adds intensity. For example, your presentation was just inspiring, or this meal is just delicious. Can you share the recipe? Or here's another one. I just can't stand this song. In each case, just is working like an emotional amplifier. It helps your listener feel what you're feeling, whether it's admiration, frustration, surprise, or excitement. And this particular use of just is very common in casual conversations, storytelling, and sharing your personal reactions. It brings your voice to life and it helps you connect more emotionally with the person that you're speaking to. So here's what I want you to remember. Use just in this way when you want to emphasize a strong feeling, especially when you want your tone to show how much something matters to you in a good way or a bad way. You've now seen how one tiny word, this word just, can do a lot of different things in English. It can show time. It can limit or soften. It can add emotion or precision or even urgency to your words. And when you understand these small shifts in meaning and tone, you're not only improving your English vocabulary, you're actually building the kind of language awareness that helps you sound natural, thoughtful, and confident in English. These different ways of using just aren't only grammar points, they're tools to help you express yourself more clearly in real emails and real conversations. So here's what I would love for you to think about. Where do you notice the word just the most? Is it in meetings, in emails, or casual conversations that you're having? I want you to start paying attention, start noticing how it's used and how it sounds. Because the more that you notice it, the easier it becomes for you to use it well. Now, as always, if you found this lesson helpful to you, I would love for you to subscribe or follow wherever you're watching or listening from today. Thank you so much for being here, and I look forward to next time.